the moonlight when my mother had finished working. We used to sit around the fireplace till the cornbread was done, and then we all would eat our supper. After that we'd clean the kitchen. It's the only time they ever gave us to have a little fun. And my daddy used to take his fiddle down that hung upon the wall, while the silvery moon was shining clear and bright. How the folks would enjoy it, they would sit all night and listen, as we used to sing in the evening by the moonlight. That is a song that goes way back to 1880. It's written by James Bland.
Hi, welcome to Notables. Today we are featuring songwriter and minstrel James Bland. James Bland was born in Flushing, New York on October 22nd, 1854. James's father was one of the first African Americans to receive a college education. James's father was appointed as an examiner at the U.S. Patent Office. He was the first African American to hold that position. Because of that, the Bland family moved to Washington, D.C., and that is where James received his school education.
James developed his ear for music by singing and writing his own compositions, often to a banjo accompaniment. As a teenager, he became a page at the U.S. House of Representatives and often performed for members of the Manhattan Club and for other notables in Washington, D.C.
After high school, James and his father both enrolled in Howard University. James studied liberal arts and his father studied law. James graduated at the age of 19, but his main ambition was to become a stage performer. James applied for a position in different minstrel groups, but he was not hired because they all preferred white men performing in blackface. But in 1875, James was hired by Billy Kearson's all-Negro minstrel band, and they toured throughout the United States.
In 1881, James traveled to England as a member of the Calendar Haverley Minstrels. They traveled to England and they were very popular. They even performed for Queen Victoria and the Prince of Wales. James was making about $10,000 a year at that time, which was a lot of money for those days. But according to his biography, he was not very wise with his money, and he ended up penniless. Somehow, though, he managed to make it back to the United States, where a friend got him a job in Washington, D.C.
During his lifetime, James Bland wrote over 600 songs. Among them were In the Evening by the Moonlight, The Golden Wedding, O Dem Golden Slippers, and Carry Me Back to Old Virginia, which was adopted in 1940 as the official state song of Virginia. In 1970, then Senator Douglas L. Wilder objected to the song's lyric with what some say was a romanticized view of slavery. This objection officially initiated a controversy that remains unresolved to this day.
The song was eventually retired as the state song and redesignated in 1997 as the State Song Emeritus. Virginia is now without an official song. During the 2006 session of the Virginia General Assembly, it appeared that the American classic Shenandoah would emerge as the interim state song, but the effort failed in a House committee. And just a quick note to the legislators in the state of Virginia. It was very awesome that you actually had a state song written by a black man who lived in the 1800s. That is awesome. You really shouldn't have changed it. I understand why. The word darkies, the word massa. But here's an idea, and I'm going to demonstrate it in just a little bit. Change the word darkies to old man or fellow. And change the word massa to living. It works out perfectly, and you keep a beautiful song as your state song. I'm just saying.
James Bland died in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania from tuberculosis on May 5th, 1911. He was buried in an unmarked grave in a part of the Negro Cemetery in Marion, Pennsylvania. Then, in 1939, the American Society of Composers, Authors, and Publishers, also known as ASCAP, found his gravesite, landscaped it, and erected a monument. In 1946, Virginia Governor William Tuck presided at the dedication of the granite monument placed at Bland's grave. In 1970, James Bland was inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. With over 600 songs and an accomplished musician, that is why James Bland is featured in Notables, the well-sung heroes of songwriting.
Carry me back to old Virginia. That's where the cotton and the corn and potatoes grow. There's where the birds warble sweet in the springtime. There's where this old man's heart is long to go. That's where I labored so hard for my living, day after day in the field of yellow corn. No place on earth do I love more sincerely than old Virginia, the state